Hello, welcome to Egenes lesson 9. In this video we will be going through the exercises. That's on pages 114 to 117, and then in the video after this we'll be doing the simplified excerpt from the Ramayana at pages 123 and 124. However, in this video we'll just be doing the formal exercises. So I'm looking at page 114. Sorry, I didn't have the that screenshot up, I don't think. This is just the introductory page. There we are. So exercise 1, put the correct sandhi for the following phrases. Now, I think what I'll try to do here, if it works, maybe I'll have to go into writing for a bit, is we'll try and do it orally. Though if any of you want to follow on the key, of course, you've got the entire key at page 268 of the printed book. So I'll read them without the sandhi. Ramah gacchati should be Ramo gacchati. Sentence B, Balah agachanti, which, because it's an long with visarga followed by a vowel, the visarga drops off, so it's Bala agachanti. Sentence C, Virau agachata. Now the au, as in Virau, the two heroes, followed by a vowel, the au becomes an av, written as a long a with consonantal v. So it's Viravagachata. And if you look at the key, if you need to look at the key, please of course do lesson 9 1c near the top of page 268. You'll see it's Viravagachata. Actually, I will write this for you. Camera and screen. Here we are. So without sandhi, virau. This is as it's written in the exercise on page 114. Virau agachataha. The two heroes are coming. Now that has to become the au a becomes av, virav a gachata. This v now is written as a separate consonant. Remember now that in the Devanagari script the words have to be run together, and that is why you're going to see Virav. I'll do the first part first. Viravagachataha. Viravagachataha. So this is the va. Again, be cautious. A trap I fell into many times in my early days of reading original Sanskrit in Devanagari. Just remember there is a word division here. So according to the rules of Devanagari, it's all got to be joined up because the va is considered as a syllable on its own, irrespective of the fact that the v belongs to the preceding word and the a belongs to the following word. In writing, they're treated as one syllable. There's one syllable spanning two words. D, Shishya atra, literally the pupil, the student here, becomes Shishyotra. The becomes O, Shishyotra. in Roman script, we would tend to write it like that, the apostrophe for the missing a. And in Devanagari, Shishyo and this avagraha sign representing the apostrophe, the missing a, Shishyotra. Sentence E, Ramah iti, you get the aha followed by an I in the next word. What happens? Ah followed by I, simply the visarga drops, so it's Rama iti. And again, you do not now join the a and the I there, because that would be, this is a secondary hiatus. We've applied the sandhi once, that's all you do. Rama iti. Sentence F, Deva smaranti. The gods remember. No sandhi to be applied here, or rather by applying sandhi there is no change, because we've got the visarga, the followed by an S, and so it remains unchanged. Note here, indeed whenever you see this visarga followed by a s or a sh, that in Vedic you will tend to hear it pronounced, the visarga written as visarga, but tends to be pronounced the same as the following S. So in Vedic, if that were being chanted in Vedic, you would tend to hear Deva smaranti, not Deva smaranti, but Deva smaranti, the doubling of that S. And I have in the past, you don't see them so much now, I have in the past seen actually printed Sanskrit texts where the S's are run together. So Deva smaranti, you will occasionally see written like that. Devas, sorry, muck that up. Press the wrong button. That's SSMA, sorry. SSMA, Devas smaranti. Devas smaranti. Again, you will see that, but not so much. It's much more common to see it written the way I've done it here, and the way it's done in the book. Sentence G, Putraha pashyati, meaning the son sees. Visarga followed by a P, no change, leave it as it is, Putra pashyati. Ashvahavadati, okay, you've got the visarga, the followed by a voiced consonant, so the becomes O, Ashvavadati. Now, in exercise 2, you are asked, these are written correctly with sandhi, but you're asked to, as it were, resolve the sandhi. What would it be? What was it before applying the sandhi? So Ramo gacchati is the result of Ramaha gacchati, with the becoming O before the voiced G. Sentence B, Kutra gacchati. Where is he coming to? Kutra agacchati is the original at the end of the first word, followed by the long merges into a long a. When I say original, what I mean is that's how the word is in its raw form. Word standing on its own is kutra, just ending in a short a. So like that, because it's an original short a, that's how the word is on its own. Then it merges into the following a. Sentence C, Suryashchandrascha. That's the sun and the moon, both masculine nouns. So it would be Suryaha, Chandraha, Cha. So in both cases you get the Visarga followed by the consonant Ch. Being a Ch, the Visarga takes on the same point of articulation, comes out with the tongue in the same place, so it's where it becomes Suryesh Chandrashcha. Suryesh Chandrashcha, Suryaha Chandraha Cha. Sentence D, Gajair Vira. Gajay, instrumental plural with the elephants or by elephants. Gajay Viraha. Okay, so you treat the A as a single vowel for these purposes, compound vowel. So because it's a visarga preceded by a vowel other than A or A, it's A. It becomes, before a voiced consonant, it becomes a R. That's why Gajair Vira. And again, this shows one of the slight complications of the Devanagari script. Gajair, then you've got to write the V. Gajair Vira. So the E, V, that's the V. But the R from Gajair comes at the very end of this syllable by that hook there. So that's the R of the Gajair Vira. Gajair Vira. Again, a pitfall that you've just got to be aware of as you read. You've got to keep your eye a tiny bit ahead to look for that R, which belongs to the preceding word. So if the words were separated, which of course you can't do in Devanagari, it would be written like that. Gajair Vira. But you cannot do that. You've got to join the R to the V. And this is how it's done here. Write it large. Rvi, this is Rvi. Gajair Vira. Sentence E. Ashva agachanti. So this is the horses are coming. Originally it was Ashvaha with Visarga, Ashvaha, but preceded by another vowel, so the Visarga drops, leaving what we call this secondary hiatus. So you can, in this circumstance, have A followed by A, and they do not merge, as we've explained. Apply the sandhi only once. Sentence F, Ramaha putrashcha. So this would have been before applying sandhi. Ramah unchanged because it's followed by pa, but it would have been, was before putrah cha, becomes putrashcha. Remember this sh plus ch, written, the shape of the sh changes to go like that, sh. That's how it's written, so it's a sh. Sentence G, Gajay Saha with the elephants. There's been no change there. It was a Visarga followed by S, left unchanged, so sentence G is the same as it was before applying sandhi. H, Palayor Jalam. The Jalam, the water. Palayor, right in Roman, Palayor. That is the dual genitive and locative ending. So Palayor Jalam is the Jalam, could mean either the juice, water, Jalam is water, can also mean the juice of a fruit as squeezed out. So it could be either the water, literally the water, the juice of the two fruits, or it could mean the juice in the two fruits. There's an ambiguity here. We haven't seen it in context, so we can't resolve whether this palayor is a locative or a genitive. It could be either. We'd need more context in order to determine which it is. So as before, the O, you've got the vowel other than A or A preceding the visarga. You've got the O followed by a J, it becomes a R. So palayor jalam. Sorry, look that up. Jalam. Palayor jalam. So in exercise 3, to which we now proceed, we have translate the following sentences into English. Take out the sandhi for vowels in the final visarga, and then translate. So C, sentence 3A. Virasya balo bhavati. Virasya balo bhavati. Before sandhi, that would have been balaha. Balaha bhavati, balo bhavati. So of the hero, a son or child is, meaning the hero has a child. Where you just see a genitive and then a nominative and then bhavati, of a, be, is, then that often does mean to have. And you can often tell that because it doesn't say what he is, it just says of him he is, or of him it is, which often then you can say, that must mean it has. For example, if you wanted to say, so the hero has a son, virasya balo bhavati. Suppose you wanted to say the hero's son is a monk. You say virasya balo bhikshur bhavati. Then you realize that the bhavati, what? Bhikshu bhavati is a monk. And then you realize that can't mean, it can't be bhavati in the sense of to have. It means his son is something. Virasya balo bhikshur bhavati. Again, that's something you'll very quickly get used to. And indeed, it's that same kind of sentence structure in sentence B, top of page 115 now. Sukham jnanasya phalam bhavati. And it's written without sandhi in the first instance and with it in the second instance. The only differences you can see there are the sukham and phalam written in isolation, written on their own, are written with a full consonantal M, whereas with a following in the same sentence, with a following consonant, the full consonantal M becomes the anuswara, that's the dot above. So you'll see sukham, written on its own, sukham, but followed by jnanasya, M followed by consonant becomes subdotted, and you'll see that's the one that's written as an over dot. So on its own, in isolation, sukham, but then with sukham, that's the equivalent of the subdot, sukham. So sukham jnanasya phalam bhavati. So sukham, happiness, phalam bhavati is the fruit, jnanasya, of knowledge. Sentence C, without sandhi, shishyaha Grihat jalam acharyaya labhante. So it means the shishya, the students, grihat, from the house, jalam, water, acharyaya, for the teaching, labhante, are getting, are fetching. So the students are fetching some water from the house for the teacher. So the first word, shishya, without sandhi, it's the shishyaha, long a, followed by the visarga, but followed by soft consonant g, so it just drops off. Shishya grih, shishya grihat. Ablative grihat, from the house. Where you have a final t followed by a j, it has the effect the t merges into the j, and that is why you have grihad jalam. I'll write it in Roman for you, without sandhi first. Grihat, from the house, jalam, water, becomes grihad jalam. And of course, so written as well in Devanagari. Griha, with a double j, so j plus j, written like that. So grihad jalam. Sorry, line's broken. Grihad jalam. And the jalam acharyaya, where you have a word ending in an M followed by a vowel, it's pronounced and written as a full consonantal M with sandhi. That's why you have jalam acharyaya. So, oops, jalam acharyaya. So the written is as if it were a single syllable, ma, even though they belong to different words. Jalam acharyaya, jalam acharyaya. Look at them together, they look as if they're part of the same word, they're not. So shishya grihad jalam acharyaya labhante. Sentence D. Ramastatra jalaya gachatiti viro vadati. So viro vadati. The hero says, Ramastatra jalaya gacchati, iti, unquote. Therefore, gachatiti. So viro vadati, that Ramas tatra jalaya gacchati. Rama thither for water is going. So the hero says Rama is going there for water, to get water. So Ramah tatra becomes Ramas tatra, jalaya unchanged, gacchati iti, gachatiti, virah vadati, viro vadati. Ramas tatra jalaya gachatiti, viro vadati. Sentence E. Shishya acharyam sevate. Now this word save, to serve, here probably does mean to serve, though as we've seen before, it often means to adhere to, indulge in, make a practice of something, keep to something. So shishya acharyam sevate. So we have shishya followed by the long a, so that becomes shishya a, and we have this vowel hiatus. Shishya acharyam sevate. The other sandhi, of course, at the final consonantal M becomes anuswarya, acharyam sevate. Sentence F. Shishyat jnanam acharya labhante. Just as we saw a final t merging with a following j, grihat jalam becomes grihad jalam, double j. The same happens with the final t and a following l. It can get slightly more complex than that with a nasalization, but we'll leave that for the moment. It's also correct to write it simply as a double L. So acharya labhante, labhante they get, acharyat from the teacher. So shishya jnanam, acharya labhante, the students get knowledge from the teacher. And again, shishyaha on its own would have been the visarga, nominative plural, but followed by the soft voiced nya. It loses the visarga, shishyat jnanam acharyat labhante. And if you look at the Devanagari again, jnanam acharyat, we had before the jalam acharyaya, the m was written as one with the following vowel as a ma. Here it's the same, shishya, looking at the very last line now on page 115, shishya jalam acharya labhante. Jalam acharyat. Sorry, jnanam acharyat. Knowledge from the teacher. Sentence G now, turn over to page 116. Rama katam duhkam jayasi. Now, here we've got a very, very good example of the jayasi being used as a parasmaipada, conquer. Why it's being used as a parasmaipada? Because the idea is that you're asking Rama how he conquers dukkha. Here you're conquering a specific thing to be conquered, dukkha. That's why it's better to put it in the parasmaipada form. So kasmai dukkham jayase wouldn't sound quite right. Katam dukkham jayasi, yeah, that sounds better. Direct, exerting of force, a direct transitive verb. Now here, Rama, that's its original form because it's vocative. You can tell it's in the vocative because the verb is in the second person singular. If it were, how does Rama conquer dukkha? It would be Rama, with the visarga to make it a nominative, Rama katam dukkham jayati. But it's jayasi, you conquer, second person singular. So the Rama, we know it has to be an original vocative here. Oh Rama, just Rama. Rama, katam dukkham jayasi. How do you conquer sorrow? Suffering, of course. Now, sentence H. Read it without Santi. Putraha grihat nripasya ashveshu gachati. So, putro, the son, grihat, from the house, gachati, goes, nripasya ashveshu, on the king's horses, ashveshu, on the horses, locative plural, nripasya ashveshu, by Santi, nripasya ashveshu, on the king's horses. Now, just as we have seen a final T merging with the following initial J and merging the following initial L, here we see it following with the merging rather with the following initial N. So from the house of the Grihat Nripasya becomes Grihan Nripasya, and you'll see it written as a double N in the Devanagari. This is a N, a tiny little bauble there, and make a double N like that. This is N. So, Grihan nripasya ashveshu, from the house on the king's horses. Griha, going to write grihatna, which becomes grihan nre. This is n r. Grihat nripasya, grihan nripasya ashveshu becomes ashveshu, shva e shu. Grihan nripasya ashveshu. Sentence I. Amritam sukhasya phalam bhavatiti chintayate. So, as we've seen, for he thinks, chintayati or chintayate, they're both equally correct. And I don't think there's any distinction of meaning. Maybe in the older language there may have been a slight distinction, but I don't think we can see one here. Nachintayami, nachintaye. Yeah. So amritam is immortality. Just look at this word for a moment. It's the root mri. Sorry. Root mri, meaning to die. Dead, past participle, is formed regularly. Mritta. Latin mortuus, mortality in English. And in Pali, mata. Amrita, negated, suggests as if it simply ought to be negating the noun. So mrita means dead. Amrita, therefore, ought to mean not dead. In fact, it doesn't. In fact, it's the abstract noun. It means immortality, not just undead. So this is a case where the prefixing of the the negating to a word, doesn't just negate the word. It actually makes a bit of a different meaning. So not undead, but immortality. And in Pali, it's amatam, amritam in Sanskrit, amatam in Pali. Now, appamada is the abode of the immortal. Appamado, amatapadam, the abode, the padam of the amata. So amritam sukhasya param bhavatiti chintayate. So he chintayate, he thinks, and because it's a mental activity, he's thinking something you expect in iti somewhere just before it, and you do. Bhavati iti comes bhavatiti. So amritam, he thinks, he is thinking. Amritam, immortality. Sukhasya phalam bhavatiti. Is the fruit of happiness, he thinks. So, amritam sukhasya phalam bhavatiti chintayate. I don't know whether this is meant in a slightly snide way. Well, if that's what he thinks, he's got another thing coming. Anyway, immortality is the fruit. If you're happy, you will become immortal. He's not necessarily saying that he upholds that view. So there we are, as a matter of pure language. Amritam sukhasya phalam, the fruit of happiness, bhavati iti, is, unquote, chintayate, he thinks. And the only sandhi to be applied here is the final consonantal m. In both cases, amritam and phalam becomes anuswara, with a, you can see it written as the dot over the consonant. In the first way, the sentence is written with a full consonantal M, in the second way with a dot over the T, applying the anuswara. And the bhavati iti, of course. And sentence J. Acharyo jnanasya pustakam shishyaya patati. So the subject of the sentence, Acharyo, Before Sandhi, it would have been Acharya, the teacher, followed by a voiced consonant. So by the Jna, so it becomes Acharyo. Acharyo Patati, the teacher reads. This verb patati tends not to be just reading to yourself. The original idea, maybe it does now, but the idea is reciting, and the verbal noun from patati, to read or to recite, is partha, to read out loud, or to recite. And that's where we get the word Pali actually from. So the parti in Sanskrit, it would be the parti bhasha, the recitational language, the language of the recitation. And that p became a l in Pali, and you get the Pali bhasha, the recitational language, the language used for recitation. That's the origin of our word Pali, from this root pat, to recite. So jnana, knowledge, jnanasya pustakam, the book of knowledge, shishyaya, dative to the student. So without the sandhi, it would be acharya jnanasya pustakam shishyaya patati. The sandhi here is just the pustakam, the vocalic, the consonantal m changes to the anuswara, and the acharya becomes acharyo before the voiced jna. Acharyo jnanasya pustakam shishyaya patati. Right, we now go on to exercise 4, translation into Sanskrit, where you're invited to write in Roman and then in Devanagari. The key, does it give it in Roman? No, it doesn't. The key gives it only in Devanagari. So I will do it in Roman. So oops. Exercise 4. Page 116. So sentence A. Do it in Roman first. So the water is in Rama's hands. So the jalam. Now, hand is hasta. And we're going to have to use the dual, and it's the dual locative. So that is hastayo, in the two hands. Is in the hands. Remember, even in English, in English we just use the plural, in his hands, but in Sanskrit you've always got to remember how many hands. So a person has 2 hands, so you've got to use the dual. That's something that was spared in Pali, which ceased to use the dual long before the Buddha spoke. Before the Buddha spoke, it wasn't really called Pali. But anyway, in that variety of Magadhi speech, or the speech, common speech of the time, the dual number had fallen out of use. Probably a long time before, and I say probably a long time because I don't think we even see remnants of a dual in Pali. If it were a recent change, you'd probably see remnants, but we don't. It's just straight singular and plural. So hastayo is in the hands, hastayo bhavati. Now what happens? We've got o, visarga, preceded by a vowel other than a or a, followed by a voice consonant, so that has to become hastayor bhavati. So jalam, the water, ramasya hastayor bhavati, and I'll write it with in Devanagari with sandhi. So jalam ramasya hastayor bhavati. Sentence B. The boy reads the book. The boy, balah, the book, pustakam, reads, patati. That's so simple enough. So balaha, followed by a p, so it doesn't change. It's a neuter noun. Pustakam, same phenomenative and accusative. Pustakam patati. Right, we've got the M becomes anuswara, followed by a consonant, and patati, he reads. Balaha pustakam patati. Sentence C, the hero stands ever in the house of the king. Here the word eva, ever, they're nothing to do with each other, purely coincidental resemblance. But use eva here, means he stands ever in the house of the king. That means that's all he does. No other house, that's all he does. He's always doing it. So he stands ever in the house of the king is just one way of translating that. That's all he does. That's the only house he stands in. So C. So the hero, the viraha, but in the house of the king, nrapasya grihe. So voice consonant n, viro, viraha becomes viro, viro, nripasya grihe, eva tishtati, stands. Now, where you have a word ending in a, followed by another word ending in a. In fact, I think the rule applies to all vowel, sorry, to a followed by any vowel. The a simply becomes a. So you grihe eva becomes griha eva. And again, we now have a secondary hiatus. We have applied the sandhi once, so we leave it now as it is. So it comes out as griha eva, and so written as two separate words in Devanagari. Griha, griha eva. So nripo, sorry, viro, nripasya griha eva tishtati. Sentence D. The boys obtain the fruits from the forest. So the boys, balah, from the forest. Vana is the forest, so vanat. From the forest, the fruits they obtain. Let's assume they're getting them for themselves. We'll use the atmanepada form of lab, so labhante. So without sandhi, bala, vanat, from the forest, palani, the fruits, labhante, they obtain. The sandhi here is very simple. All that happens is that the visarga at the end of bala drops because it's followed by the voice consonant v. So bala, vanat, palani, labhante. When the t, we've seen the t merging with the following consonant in certain cases. With the p, they don't merge, they remain separate. So it's vanat, palani. The only difference is that they're written together in the Devanagari. So bala, vanat, palani, labhante. Vanat, palani is written like this. Vana, van, a, same ta, but because no vowel is immediately followed by a consonant, sorry, I put the E in slightly the wrong place. There we are. Palani. That's the t, p. Vanat, palani. Sentence E, you conquer suffering with knowledge, the teacher says. So with knowledge, you're going to have the instrumental here. So jnana, neuter noun, jnanam, instrumental, jnanena. You conquer suffering. Are we going to have, well, you conquer, could be jayasi or jayase. What are we going to use? We're going to use the parasmaipada, because we've got a definitive direct object of the conquering. So dukkam jayasi. You conquer suffering. If you just wanted to say, you emerge victorious, you conquer by knowledge, you are generally victorious, you may say, jnanena jayase. You emerge victorious, no defined object of what you've scored a victory over. You conquer suffering, direct object, dukkam jayasi, the parasmaipada. So jnanena dukkam jayasi. The teacher says, literally, iti, the teacher says, iti acharya vadati. Acharya vadati, the v voice consonant preceded by a, it becomes o. So jnanena dukkam jayasiti acharyo vadati. Now, what happens with the iti acharyo vadati? We've got an I followed by an a, so the I has got to become a y. So it's ityacharyo vadati. Let me write it here. So iti acharyo. What happens? The iti, the I followed by an a becomes a consonantal. Sorry, press the wrong one. Becomes consonantal ya. So iti acharyo, acharyo, ityacharyo vadati. So jnanena dukkam jayasi tyacharyo vadati. Got to make two sentences. Iti, jayasi iti, jayasiti, jayasiti acharyo, jayasityacharyo. Sentence F. From the fruit, the boy obtains water. So from the fruit, ablative palat, the boy, balah, water, jalam, labhate, obtains. Now, we join the ta at the end of palat to the voiced consonant b. All that happens there is the t becomes a b. The voicing of the b, the following b, palat balo, makes palad balo. So the voicing of the b affects the preceding t and voices it. So palat balo becomes palad balo. Balah jalam, of course, has to be balo jalam, and jalam labhate. So that's all fairly straightforward. The only new thing you've learnt there. So write in Latin, palat balo changes to d, palad balo. Sentence G. I see truth in the sun and the moon, says Rama. So Surya, the sun, masculine noun, in the sun, Surye. Similarly for Chandra, Chandre, in the sun and the moon, you have to put both in the locative. Surye Chandrecha. I see truth. Pashyami. Truth I see. Satyam Pashyami. Says Rama, iti Rama vadati. Of course, becomes iti Ramo vadati. So Surye Chandrecha. Satyam Pashyami iti Ramo vadati. So Pashyami iti, Pashyami iti. Ramo vadati. Sentence H. Without knowledge there is suffering. So without, we can use vina, mostly used with the instrumental. So jnanam, knowledge. Without knowledge, jnanena vina. Jnanena vina dukkam bhavati. Without knowledge there is suffering. 9. I do not come from the village, the king's son says. So, gramat na agachami. Agachami, I come. Na agachami, I do not come. Santi there. Na agachami becomes nagachami. Now, a few sentences back, we had the sandhi between a final t and an initial n. So, gramat na becomes gramana. So gramat na agachami becomes gramanagachami. I'll write a few with sandhi. Graman. I'm writing the circumflex here because it's the merging of the na agachami, nagachami. As I've said before, this is never reflected in the Devanagari. There's no mechanism in the Devanagari script to reflect it. So, Graman Nagachami, I am not coming from the village. Nirpasya putro vadati. That's simple enough. The king's son says. Sentence J. The hero and the boy live in the forest. So, Viraha Balahacha Vane Vasataha. Remember to use the third person dual. Vasataha. They live, they too live. So, Vira Balahacha by regular sandhi now becomes Viro Balashcha. So, Viro Balashcha Vane Vasataha. Viro Balashcha Vane Vasataha. And that concludes the exercises at the bottom of page 117 in the textbook. And the next video we'll be going through this this paraphrase. It's not the exact words of the Ramayana, but the little paraphrase of the story on page 123.